pull up a chair or gather around the campfire as we look over two more terrifying tales from Se Shlosser's book, Spooky Virginia, The Convert out of Coburn, Virginia, and The FingerBone from Lee County. We go over those two stories and more on today's episode of What's Your Theory? Diving back into the book, Will.
The sacred text, Jared.
Sacred text. Spooky Virginia by our lady Se Shlosser.
Which, as we figured out last time, could just be a sellout writing spooky stories for every state. So,
I mean, that's an easy way to say I've written 50 books.
Yeah.
I mean, if they're all spooky Alabama, spooky California.
What's the least spooky state?
It's got to be something like, I don't know, Vermont. Don't really hear a lot from Vermont. Or maybe Idaho. I feel like
That's
Idaho.
what I was going to say.
Idaho might not be spooky. It's just kind of there, right?
Just potatoes, as far as I know.
It's hard for a potato to be spooky. But not impossible, I can't imagine. I'm sure Toy Story's done like a Halloween special or something that I've missed. And Mr. Potato Head is all spooked out. Have you seen what they've done with Mr. Potato Head? There's these new toys. They're called Mr. Potato, either Mr. Potato Chip Head or Mr. Potato Head Chips.
Okay.
And it's just like a Mr. Potato Head, but it's, instead of being a full, like, solid potato, it's chips, and you just stack them.
And they turn into a potato, or are they?
No, there's like,
just chips?
There's open air between the chips. It's like a weird, like, skeletal looking Mr. Potato Head.
Okay.
We got a bunch of them in at work, and they're absolutely hilarious.
That seems kind of terrifying.
There's a salt and vinegar one. He's like a ship's captain, and his name is Salty Vinegar or something like that, or like Salty Chip or something like that.
Nice.
I'm just like, someone was paid to name that, and I wish that was my job.
What would you name it?
Probably Salty Chip or whatever his name was, but like, I feel like that's just a cool job. Come up with a name for this potato head toy, and we will pay you $500.
See, I can't do it.
Maybe it is harder than I thought. Because I guess when the name is there, it's like, oh yeah, of course you would name it Salty, whatever. But if you had nothing to go off of, I guess it is harder to come up with.
Well, they missed on the last name. It should be Salty Chipman.
Saul Chipman.
Saul Chipman.
Oh gosh.
Better call Chipman.
Better call Saul Chipman.
I gotta say it now. We've been watching Malcolm in the Middle.
Nice.
Watching Bryan Cranston is just marvelous.
It feels like that's what he was doing with his life before he became a chemistry teacher.
Like, there's a few moments that I'm thinking about the episode where they go to the amusement park. It's the one after that, and they're like driving back, and they get stranded on the highway.
Yeah,
and he's like talking to the police officer, and he just sounds like Walter White. And he's just like, and he got all like the hand movements going around.
Anytime you hear like an angry Bryan Cranston anymore, I don't care if it's a cartoon and he's an animated voice. I'm just going to hear Walter White being angry at Jesse over something or some crap. I don't know. Love Bryan Cranston though. He's a great actor.
Yes.
He needs to be in more stuff.
He's got something coming out soon.
Does he?
Or already came out. I don't know. Let's see.
I always see his book on Audible and have thought about trying to test it out, see what it's all about. Because I like reading about like Hollywood memoirs and stuff.
Oh, yeah.
I feel like there's always some good stories you can get out of them.
Sorry, I went to Wikipedia, but I can hear him saying now, Jesse, what'd you do with the finger bone?
What'd you do with the finger bone, Jesse?
You lost the finger bone.
Jesse, where's the finger bone?
Mr. White.
That finger bone is what's keeping this operation alive, Jesse. Mr. White. I don't know where the finger bone is, bitch.
Can't you do like some science or something?
Science it, Mr. White. Science it. Can't you just grow the thumb back? We should have just should have called up Vince Gilligan back and be like, hey, we got some ideas for a new episode.
Yeah.
No, for a new season.
A full season. I'm trying to find it. Your Honor. Yeah.
Your Honor.
He plays a corrupt judge, I think. Maybe not a corrupt judge. I know he plays a judge, though.
I kind of hope it's corrupt. He's good at playing corrupt characters.
A judge confronts his convictions when his son is involved in a hit and run that embroils an organized crime family facing impossible choices. He discovers how far a father will go to save his son's life.
Seems a bit familiar. Yeah. Or, like, see how far a father will go. He read that and the thing is like, I'll take it. He's like, I've done this before. This will be easy.
You're offering me this.
I
am the one who casts.
I am the one who casts.
Okay, well, that's enough TV talk.
Now, both of these stories I'm going to read, any male character, just picture it as Bryan Cranston.
Then any other is
playing
Aaron Paul.
Yeah. Any older male character is played by Bryan Cranston. Any younger is by Aaron Paul. Before we get into this, speaking of Aaron Paul, he had a really good show on Hulu there for a while. I think it was Hulu. It's called The Path. Ooh. He's like in this cult, like religious, culty kind of thing. And fun fact, it turns out to be a little corrupt. And it's about him trying to maneuver his way through, like, learning all this stuff about the cult that he's never known. And all the ramifications with it. It was a pretty good show from what I remember. I don't think I ever finished it, though.
Interesting.
But I like Aaron Paul. Him and Bryan Cranston have a tequila, I think, that they put out. It's Dos Hombres Tequila.
Okay.
Their Instagram posts are always so, like, stylish and cool. I'm like, that must be cool. Be a big name actor and then just be like, hey, you want to start a tequila brand together, buddy? Yeah, sure. This will make more money.
What's the guy who has the skull vodka?
Dan Aykroyd.
Yeah.
Crystal Skull vodka. He's just an actual and clinically insane person, I think.
Okay.
The Crystal Skulls are... Have you seen the...
Yeah, I've watched the JonTron video.
The JonTron video on that is so funny. I never knew that he was like that on the deep end with like the Crystal Skull stuff.
Yeah.
We've distilled this vodka 15 times through diamonds. Diamonds, really? Okay, whatever. But yeah, the celebrity alcohol game is a hilarious world, I feel like.
But once you're that rich, what can you do?
Yeah, really. But speaking of alcohol, here's something that might sober you up a little bit. I've got two more terrifying tales. And these ones will kind of coincide with the Rupp ones. Rupp was from Big Stone. That was pretty close by. We drive through Big Stone anytime we go back to our hometown.
Yeah.
Which will actually coincide with the FingerBone story because that takes place in Old Lee County.
Old Lee County.
That's the old stomping grounds.
Where at in Lee County does it say?
It doesn't say. It just says Lee County. It might say more throughout the story. I'm not sure, but I don't think it does. But I'm interested to see your thoughts on the FingerBone story. Okay. See if you've actually heard it or not before, because I feel like my papa always used to tell me spooky stories about stuff, but I feel like it was always I want my big toe. You remember that story?
Yeah, I think I do.
There's a man out gardening and found a toe, and it was some weird story.
Have you heard the story about the old rotten pear? My sister's probably told you.
Yes. About the whatever you do, I don't care if you can't give any of these away for free. That story?
Yeah.
Yes, she has told me that story before. That one's crazy. I'd never heard it growing up, though.
I don't know why we were told that as we went to bed.
Good night, kids.
Night. Don't give away any pears. You will die.
Oh, man. Remember to eat your fruits and vegetables, but don't give them away. But yeah, this first story here takes place not in Lee County, but Coburn, Virginia.
Okay.
Which I lived in Coburn for a year. Me and my buddy Josh from high school lived in this Coburn house, and I'm trying to remember if I got any spooky feelings in Coburn in general, and I'm pretty sure I did, but I don't know if it was because of the ghosts. It might have just been
Coburn.
The Coburn atmosphere. I won't try to use this to like badmouth any of these places until we get to Lee County, because I feel like we're warranted to do that, because I mean, I've spent 20 odd years of my life.
Yeah, I spent at least 17.
Yeah, like
20.
I can't imagine that we're not allowed to talk bad about our home just a little bit. So I'll get started with the convert. Is what this one's called.
Terrifying name for it.
It is very terrifying. It puts me in the headspace of like Hereditary or like Midsummer type movies.
Never seen them, but yeah.
Well, I'll say this too before we get into it. Hereditary scares me to this day. That movie is one of the scariest movies I think I've ever seen, and I know that some people will be like, "Oh, what, you really thought that was scary? Get over yourself, okay?" Yes, that movie's terrifying, and if you say that it's not, you're just trying to act tough in front of everybody. It's okay to admit a movie's scary. Doesn't matter if everyone else thinks it's scary. That movie's freaking terrifying.
Okay.
I hate it. I love it, but I hate it. Midsummer wasn't as terrifying, but it was a beautiful movie. It was very well done. But let's dive into the convert here. And there's already a last name that I'm familiar with. I've even been to the gym that it might be named after, but we'll see. The convert, Coburn, Virginia. Old Man Greer was just about the grumpiest fellow in the South, and he was an atheist to boot. His wife tried and tried to get him to go to church. I know why it's called the convert now, and I'm a little disappointed. I was hoping for something a little bit spookier. His wife tried and tried to get him to go to church. She said he should set a good example to his son and daughters. He said that he wasn't going to be a hypocrite like the fellows who got drunk in the local tavern every weekday and then sat in the front pew on Sunday. And that was that. Kind of like Old Man Greer so far. He sounds like he's kind of got a solid head on his shoulders. Mrs. Greer was a game lady. Year after year, she kept on trying. Every Christmas and Easter, she'd invite her man to church, and every Christmas and Easter, he'd say, "No, thank you," and go out hunting or fishing instead. "Papa ought to go to church," her little son, Timmy, said to his mama. "I'd like him to hear me sing." "I'd like that too," Mrs. Greer said with a sigh. Timmy had a lovely soprano voice and was a soloist in their community church. But even on Sundays when Timmy sang a solo, Old Man Greer wouldn't go to church. Sour though he was on religion. Okay, Se Shlosser. Sour though he was on religion, Old Man Greer was proud of his children, and he supported their academics and their hobbies. So whenever Timmy had a solo at church, his father had the boy perform again for the family when they got home from the service. It was shortly after Timmy performed Amazing Grace in church that he fell sick with pneumonia. The doctor did everything in his power to save the child, but Timmy died within a week. Old Man Greer was devastated by the loss of his child. In the long weeks and months that followed, he clung all the tighter to his two remaining children and begrudged all the time the girls spent in church with their mama. "If you'd come to church with us, you wouldn't be parted from us so much," his youngest daughter said to him. But Old Man Greer still wouldn't go to church. In the springtime following Timmy's death, a revival preacher came to town. The minister of the local church scheduled tent meetings every night for a whole week, and everyone in town planned to go. Everyone but Old Man Greer. Excuse me. "Nonsense," he grumbled to his wife. "You should stay at home with me." But Mrs. Greer was a spirited as well as spiritual lady. If she wanted to go to the revival meeting, she was going to go to the revival meetings and take the girls with her. And so they went. The preacher was an eloquent speaker, and the girls delighted in the wonderful music and the moving sermon. They talked about it so much when they got home that Old Man Greer went out to the barn to avoid hearing them. Mrs. Greer, who was determined to save her husband's soul, followed him to the barn and begged him to come with them to the next evening, but he said no real firm. He started mucking out the horse stall for emphasis, which sent his wife scurrying back to the house so she wouldn't soil her dress. But Mrs. Greer wasn't done with her husband. She asked the minister to go to her husband's place of business the next day to invite him personally to the tent meeting. The minister went. Old man Greer was polite to the minister. Almost. But he made it clear that he didn't hold with church and wasn't going to a revival meeting. Ever. Then, fate took a hand. When Mrs. Greer and the girls got home from the tent meeting on the third day of the revival, they found Old Man Greer standing in front of the house, staring up at the hill at the family graveyard. "What's wrong, Papa?" asked his oldest girl, slipping her hand through his arm. He patted her hand fondly, but didn't take his eyes off the graveyard. I thought I heard someone singing," he said gruffly. The color drained out of Mrs. Greer's cheeks. She missed her only son horribly, and this reminded her of her loss, left her speechless. The four Greers clung to one another for a moment, staring up at the graveyard in the dim light of the moon. Then they went inside. No sooner had the door closed behind them than the singing began. The voice was a pure soprano. The tune, Amazing Grace.
Oh.
It was the voice of Timmy Greer. Mrs. Greer swayed alarmingly, and her husband rushed forward to catch her before she fell. He sat her gently down in a rocking chair, all the while listening as the singing voice came closer and closer to the house. Abruptly, the voice ceased. A glowing light eased itself through the wall in the upper corner of the room, right by the ceiling. The four Greers stared at the light in terrified amazement. Old Man Greer was all over with goosebumps, and his hands shook as he rubbed his wife's shoulders to comfort her. Slowly, the light moved across the ceiling and into the Greers' bedroom. Old Man Greer followed it, and his wife and girls followed him. They peered in the door of the darkened room and saw the light crawl down the wall and disappear underneath the bed. First of all, there's a thing with a light in Hereditary, and this is Hereditary. "Papa?" quavered the younger daughter. What is it?" "I don't know," said Old Man Greer grimly. He went reluctantly over to the bed to look underneath it, but there was nothing there. Mrs. Greer gave a sigh of relief and sagged a little against the door jamb. Then she gasped, and the girls with her, as the light reappeared just above the bed and went crawling back up the wall. Old Man Greer scrambled out from under the bed and watched with them as the light went back into the front parlor and out through the front wall. And then they all heard a high, boy-soprano voice singing the second verse of Amazing Grace. The voice headed off in the direction of the graveyard, growing fainter and fainter until it disappeared. The whole family was shaken by the incident, and Old Man Greer had difficulty sleeping that night, but he still refused to go to the revival meeting the next evening. "But Papa, you heard you heard the voice last night," his older girl protested. "I'm sure it was a sign." "Hush, my girl. You know my mind on the matter," Old Man Greer said. Mrs. Greer shook her head to shush the girl, and the womenfolk headed out to the tent meeting. It was another fantastic service, but Mrs. Greer had difficulty keeping her mind on the sermon. She hurried the girls home afterward, instead of staying to socialize with her friends. Things were nice and normal when they got home, and the whole family got to bed early that evening. Old Man Greer was fast asleep when the singing began up in the graveyard. "Amazing Grace, how sweet the sound," the voice sang sweetly as it approached the house. Old Man Greer and his wife sat bolt upright in bed as the song ceased just outside the house. The ghost light entered through the front parlor wall, crawled rapidly across the parlor ceiling and into the bedroom, and within moments had disappeared beneath their bed. As soon as the light vanished, the bed began to rock and dance its way across the floor. Mrs. Greer screamed, and Old Man Greer picked her up and tumbled them both out of the bed. Mrs. Greer kept screaming as her daughters raced into the room. The women watched in amazement as Old Man Greer wrestled with the bed, trying to make it stop moving about, but he kept falling on his face or tumbling onto his rear until Mrs. Greer told him to stop. The four Greers stood by the door and watched the bed's antics for several long minutes before oh my gosh, I've ran into a word that I cannot pronounce. They watched the bed's antics for several long minutes before the recalcitrant piece of furniture walked itself back. That's definitely a word where she's like, she pulled up like thesaurus.com and was like, what's another word for like moving?
Yeah.
Recalcitrant piece of furniture walked itself back to its place by the wall. The ghost light reappeared, tracing its way up and out of the house. A moment later, a voice began singing Amazing Grace out in the yard, getting fainter as it made its way up toward the graveyard. Word swiftly got around town about the Greer's dancing bed. After the revival meeting the next evening, practically everybody in town came to the Greer's place to have a look. They weren't disappointed. Right on schedule, the voice came singing its way to the house. The light slipped into the Greer's bedroom and disappeared under the bed, and the bed began to dance. 4 strong men took hold of its corners, but the bed shook them off and jiggled around and around the room. Even after the bed went back to its corner, the light crawled away and the voice went back to the graveyard. Folks stuck around, hoping for a repeat performance. Old Man Greer had dark rings around his eyes the next day, and he didn't speak much at work. When he got home, he shaved carefully, put on his best suit, and, to the complete astonishment of his wife and daughters, escorted his womenfolk to the tent meeting. He didn't sing, but he seemed to be listening when the preacher spoke. He escorted his family home in silence, raising his voice only when he found that some of his neighbors wanted to spend the night at his house to see the dancing bed. He sent them on their way lickety-split with their ears burning. That's how I should have read it. Yeah. He seemed resigned to the arrival of the voice, light, and dancing bed. He just picked up his wife and carried her into the parlor to wait until the bed stopped jiggling and they could get some sleep. Old Man Greer held out for 2 more nights. On the 3rd, he went up for the altar call and got religion at last, much to the delight of his wife and daughters. From that moment, the haunting ceased. The light and the voice were never seen or heard again. The Convert.
The Convert.
Okay, maybe I lied. Maybe they're not going to be too terrifying tales, but I mean,
are you talking? Yeah.
I gotta admit though, I feel like in any situation, having a bed do that on you, it would be pretty terrifying.
Yeah. What year did it have, like a general time period for that story?
I don't think so. I assume it has to be way back in the day. There's a little illustration there, and that kind of looks like it would be
like
colonial, probably.
Yeah.
If I had to guess.
Maybe 1800 or so. Early, late, I don't know. But the only thing I could think of is like imagine like it's like now like the world is a much different place, obviously.
Right.
So like so many different people, anybody can get married to anybody, and like personality wise is what I'm saying. Like, you can find somebody to fit your personality.
Right.
How bad does it have to go, like, to be an atheist in that time and then be like, yeah, do you want to get married?
Yeah, really. I feel like, yeah. How would that go? I feel like if I watched Little House on the Prairie and an atheist came into town, it would be like, oh my God, there's an atheist in town. Like, what do we do? I feel like they would hold like town meetings over what to do with the atheists. Yeah. It's weird that there would be a super religious woman from the sound of it married and had 3 or 4 children with a complete atheist.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe he's an unreliable narrator. Who was the narrator technically? There wasn't. It was a third person narrator, right?
Yeah.
Maybe they just don't like Old Man Greer. It literally starts out, Old Man Greer was the grumpiest man in the South, and he was an atheist.
Yeah.
Hate him. You should hate him. That's what Se Shlosser is telling us. That felt more like a
believe.
Yeah, I feel like I would have been told that in church or like youth group or something.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? At like a lock-in, church lock-in. Let me tell you all a scary story. And you're like, oh, it's a ghost story? And it's like, it is, but it's also live your life right or you're going to hell scary. And it's like, I don't know about that. Just tell me a ghost story. But that one, do you have a theory on that one? Is that more of an urban legend or?
I don't.
It's hard to tell. I really that one I'm having a hard time like getting behind.
The ending is like, bleh.
It's a bit too preachy.
Yeah, and I saw the ending.
Yeah,
from a mile away.
It being called The Convert,
and then
the second sentence is he was an atheist to boot. I'm like, okay,
yeah,
I see what kind of story this is going to be. Well, it's a well told story, I suppose, but it definitely seems more like a fable. Like there's a lesson to this one. It's not just like a ghost occurrence. There was a lesson to this one, which.
Now, kids, remember, if your father's an atheist, just die.
Yeah. Be sure to sing at church and die soon thereafter if you want to see your father again. Really, if you think about it, that's what it is. If you want to see your father again in heaven, you got to die and make sure that he stops being an atheist. Okay, God.
Where's the lake?
Pneumonia. Poor Timmy though.
Yeah,
I mean,
Timmy,
it does suck. But yeah, it's talking about like the light. There's the whole thing in Hereditary is like every time this light is like shown on the walls and like goes like that's the I won't spoil a lot, but that's the presence of that movie.
Okay.
Like that's how it gets in you and like goes around and like So the light thing that's very Hereditary like.
Yeah. Maybe that's.
I buy that.
Yeah.
But I don't buy anything else really. That was a children's story.
Yeah,
I want to be mortally terrified.
It make me scared to walk outside.
Yeah.
Make me scared to go to sleep in my own bed.
Yeah. I mean, don't just make me scared to be an atheist.
Yeah.
There's tons of stuff that already do that. Well, I'm glad I got that one out of the way first. I was hoping it would be a little more visceral, but
where's the blood and guts from the
I will say if we want a nice palate cleanser, I have a website of a bunch of Coburn ghost stories that absolutely crack me up. I can read some of those to you now, or I can go ahead and read this other story and we can kind of talk about this other stuff when we do our little wrap up.
Have you read the other story before?
I have not. It's the FingerBone.
Okay, well, let's get into that one just in case it's a snoozer.
It's right. It's oh my gosh. The third word you're gonna lose it. It's the very next chapter in the book. It's called The FingerBone. Lee County, Virginia.
Okay.
As a preacher, I've seen some strange things during my years of ministry, but the one that stands out most in my mind is the incident of the FingerBone.
FingerBone.
I was traveling through Lee County with two friends, a lawyer and a doctor, both of whom lived in my hometown. When night caught us out on the road, she doesn't say the hometown. That's odd. Seeing a tiny cabin nearby, we rode our weary horses down the lane to inquire of the owner if there was a barn or vacant house where we could camp for the night. Well, preacher, the man said after I'd introduced myself and made my request, there's a vacant house not far from here, but you don't want to stay there on account of the ghost. A ghost. I thought with a spark of interest. Spirits don't frighten me, I told the man, patting the Bible I always kept in my travel bag at my side. Where is this house? After some hesitation, the man gave us directions to the house and loaded us up with wood for a fire. Then he bade us a fearful farewell, running back into his house as though the devil were on his heels. We all heard the door slam behind him. The unspoken message was very clear. If we wanted to mess with ghosts, that was our business. He'd warned us, and that was as much as he was going to do for fools that knowingly stayed in a haunted house. The vacant house was not far away from the man's cabin. Standing in a tall grove of pines, it had been neglected for so long that part of the roof had fallen in, and only half of the porch was still attached to the house. Most of the windows were shattered, and vines grew everywhere.
That sounds like Lee County today.
Yeah, I know. It was a dismal sight in the light of the small lantern my lawyer friend had produced from his saddlebag. We rubbed the horses down and hobbled them in the shelter of the huge pines. It was a grassy place beside a very small spring and would have been a pleasant place if it weren't for the menacing structure beside it. We walked up onto the wobbling front porch and pulled open the front door, which gave a sinister squeal as it swung forward. Nasty atmosphere, my doctor friend observed as we stepped into the decrepit front hall. No wonder folks thinks this place is haunted. We stared in dismay at the tattered, mud-stained wallpaper and the mildewed carpet on the floor. It must have been an elegant home once. I could see several moldering portraits and silver candle sconces affixed to the wall, but these were so tarnished they barely reflected the lantern light. Dusty cobwebs festooned the ceiling, and a small tree was growing halfway up the center staircase. The air in the house was many degrees cooler than outside. I shivered, feeling invisible eyes peering at me from somewhere close. The gaze didn't feel particularly menacing, but the sense of otherworldliness made my skin crawl. I knew in that instant that the stories were correct. This place was haunted.
Thought you weren't afraid of spirits.
Yeah, come on, preacher. There's still a roof over this room, the lawyer called from the front parlor, and I think we can get a fire lit in that grate. Excellent, said the doctor, hurrying into the room with a shudder. For some reason, I feel terribly chilled. I clutched the travel bag with my Bible inside and went to join my friends. We soon had a fire crackling in the fireplace and a tin of baked beans bubbling over the coals beside a couple of roasting potatoes. The delicious smell filled the air, driving away thoughts of ghosts. As we ate our late supper, we discussed the house and its ghost story. Excuse me. I don't believe in ghosts, said the lawyer, shaking his head. There's at least one tale of a ghost in the Holy Bible, I told him, wiping my mouth on a napkin extracted from the doctor's saddlebag. I do believe in ghosts, and I think this place is haunted. Well, what would you do if you saw a ghost? Asked the doctor with interest. Speak to it, of course, I said with more aplomb than I felt. If a spirit shows up tonight, you boys best leave the talking to me. You can bet on it, said the doctor. I'll be too busy running to talk. That made us laugh. We were in good spirits as we spread blankets out on the dusty floor and lay down to sleep. But sleep eluded me. The wind was soughing. The wind was blowing through the tops of the pine trees, and the air in the parlor was growing more and more frigid, though it was midsummer. That's too spooky. We've talked about Hereditary and Midsummer. Oh my gosh. Chills crept up my arms and legs. Yeah, same. And a feeling of dread kept me still and silent under my blanket. Something was coming. I could sense it long before the noises began. The first manifestation came from the loft overhead. There was a deep sighing sound, followed by footsteps and the clanking of heavy chains being dragged across the floor. The doctor rolled over and his head fell off the saddlebag that he was using as a pillow. On the far side of the fire, the lawyer sat bolt upright, staring overhead. Both men turned frightened faces towards me in the dim light of the dying fire, as the door to the hallway banged open and a chill breeze swept through the room. Remember, let me do the talking, I stammered, trying to sound brave. My whole body was shaking so badly I couldn't have run even if I wanted to. Inside my head, I kept repeating, I'm a man of God. Nothing can harm me. I only wish I believed it. That's a good, okay. This is getting good. We heard the chains dragging down the staircase and saw a bluish light fill the hallway outside. Then the glowing figure of a woman appeared in the doorway. The bluish light from her body illuminated the front parlor and cast a strange, swirling shadow into the corner. Wrapped in heavy chains, she moaned softly as she made her way past the cowering lawyer, whose teeth were chattering so loud I could hear them from across the room. The glowing woman stopped in front of the fireplace and turned to face us, her face twisted in agony, her hands wringing together so hard that phantom blood spurted through the translucent fingers. This was my big moment, and I nearly flubbed it. I had to clear my throat twice before any sound would emerge. In the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Ghost, what do you want?
Oh my God,
I intoned, sounding like a schoolboy playing a game rather than a minister of the Lord declaiming to a phantom. I'd been taught to recite this litany three times in order to release the voice of the spirit, and by the third time, I sounded almost myself again. At the third repetition of my question, the ghost began to moan again, a sound that raised every hair on my body and made my legs quiver as though they wanted to run. It was sheer willpower that kept me seated. The doctor gasped and ducked his head under his blanket as the moan grew louder and higher in pitch. The lawyer clapped his hands to his ears as the piercing sound hit an unbearably high note. Then it ceased, and the phantom spoke. "I was murdered in this house," she whispered. "My sweetheart killed me for my money and buried me in the cellar. I want you to find my bones. Find my bones." The ghost's last 3 words became another high-pitched wailing. I hugged my Bible against my chest, wondering if I should adjure the spirit again in the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. But her wailing stopped abruptly, and she continued to speak. "When you find my bones, you must give them a Christian burial. All save the bone of my little finger. I want you to keep the finger bone, and I want you to set a dinner and invite all your neighbors. After you have asked the blessing, pass the finger bone around on a silver plate. The bone will stick to the hand of the man who killed me." Okay. The ghost paused again and moaned. This time her voice went low and deep. It rumbled in the pit of my stomach, making me nauseous. Across the room, the lawyer curled up into a little ball, rocking back and forth with his hands still clamped over his ears. I fumbled in my shirt and pulled out a silver cross on a chain, which I held up to the spirit. The sight of the cross recalled her to herself, and the sound abruptly ceased. "Before my sweetheart killed me, I hid my money where he could not find it. If you carry out my request, I will reveal the hiding place to you, and you may have the money with my blessing," the phantom concluded. She stared deep into my eyes, her glowing orbs burning into mine. I swallowed 3 times and stammered, "I will do as you ask." Satisfied, the ghost vanished with a small puff of air. The room went dark save for the glowing embers of the fire. The doctor groaned and poked an eye out from under the blanket. "Is it safe to come out?" he whispered hoarsely. I think so," I muttered. Across the room, the lawyer groaned almost as piteously as the phantom. "There are times," he said, "when I wish grown men were allowed to run home screaming for their mothers." "You and me both," I said sincerely. We waited until the next morning when the sun was shining brightly over the pine grove before we went down into the cellar and disinterred with the murdered girl. Then we took the bones to the local sheriff and told him where we'd found the body. We all attended the funeral of the unknown girl a few days later. The only bone missing when the coffin was placed into the ground was the bone of her little finger. As the ghost requested, I threw a big dinner party a week after the funeral and invited the whole neighborhood. I found it a little strange that she wanted me to invite the people from my town, which was many miles from where her body had been buried. But I obeyed her request to the letter. What letter? After the blessing, I passed around the bone on a silver platter, calling it a curiosity and asking my neighbors to guess what it was. "Hey guys, look.
I found a bone.
Guess what it is?"
It's cool.
The woman seated beside me at the table gave me an odd look, but she picked up the bone as requested and examined it. "Is it some kind of animal bone?" she asked. "Not a bad guess," I replied. "Let's see what others think. This man's insane. This is like Texas Chainsaw Massacre level stuff."
FingerBone.
She put the bone back on the silver platter and handed it to the lawyer, who winked at me, picked up the bone, and pretended to examine it. "I think it comes from a raccoon," he said before putting the bone back on the platter and handing it to the man seated beside him. The man was the cousin of one of my parishioners, who was boarding at the home of his relative. As soon as the man picked up the finger bone, I knew he was the one. "I'm not sure if it is an animal bone," he said, and then tried to turn it over, but the bone stuck to his fingers and wouldn't come off. "What's this?" he exclaimed, trying and failing to drop the bone. He shook his hand violently, but the bone was stuck fast. My eyes met those of the sheriff from Lee County. Gary Parsons?
Gary Parsons.
Oh my gosh, maybe. who had been invited to join the dinner party. You are correct, I said loudly over the man's alarmed exclamations. It is not the bone of an animal. It is the bone of a murdered woman found in a house over in Lee County. The man's eyes widened in sudden understanding and color flooded his face. Get it off me, he begged, holding his hand out towards me. Get it off. It is not in my power to remove the finger bone, I said softly. Only you can remove it. The other guests looked from the bone to the man's face, to me, puzzled. Then one or two blinked in horror as understanding dawned. If it was the bone of a murdered woman and it was sticking to this man's hands, did that mean he was... I saw the internal struggle reflected in the man's expression. He realized that he was caught, but was not sure whether to confess or run. He went very pale and slowly slumped against the back of the chair, staring at the bone stuck to his hand. Then he jerked to his feet and screamed, I did it! I confess! I killed my sweetheart for her money and buried her in the cellar!
I did it!
As he spoke, the bone quivered on his hand. Every eye was fixed upon it as it slowly fell from the man's hand, clattering down onto the silver platter and sat demurely on the table in front of him. Then the sheriff came quietly around the table and led the shaking man away. When my house was empty again, save for my two friends, I asked if they wanted to share a share of the treasure, should the ghost keep her promise. They both shook their heads. They were well-to-do and had everything they wanted, whereas I was a poor minister and could barely make ends meet. If you find it, you keep it, said my lawyer friend, and the doctor agreed. The ghost did appear to me later that night and told me exactly where to find the money she'd hidden from her sweetheart. I went to the location the next day and the money was right where she said it would be. It amounted to several $1,000s, enough to keep me in comfort the rest of my days. In fact, I used it to buy and restore the haunted house in the Pine Grove. In due time, I brought a bride home to that house, and together we raised a family there. It became a very happy place indeed, filled with love and laughter, and frequent visits from my doctor and lawyer friends. But the ghost girl was never seen again.
It's actually pretty good.
That one was pretty good. I like that one.
I did,
It is not in my power to remove the finger bone.
I feel like it's, the setup is like the longest joke ever. It's like,
yeah, I know.
A preacher, a lawyer.
A preacher, a lawyer, and a doctor walked into a haunted house. 7 pages later. Where's the punchline? Oh, no, it's just a story.
Yeah.
I like that one. I feel, that one seems more believable to me than the other one, just because I feel like I've heard, you know, like stories of people being converted to whatever, or to whatever religion from whatever religion because of stuff like that. But I feel like I've also heard more stories of ghosts helping
solve their murder.
Yeah, helping alive people solve murders and stuff.
Yeah.
And maybe it's just because it's Lee County, but I feel like I like that one better than the convert. I would have more chance. I'd have greater of a chance believing that one than the convert. Which I will say that these stories are kind of flourished a bit, so I don't know the logistics of everything, but
Se Shlosser really likes using words that these people would never use.
And it's because, like, I don't think I'm a bad reader. I feel like I know words well, but she does throw some words in there that I'm like, you're putting this in the middle of a sentence where every other word and every other sentence I've read so far has been, you know,
the tree was large.
Yeah. The tree was large. He was an atheist to boot. The catamarans of Kathmandu, blah, blah, blah. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. It makes no sense to me. But I like the FingerBone story.
And see, that the preacher said the thing that I said in episode 1.
Yeah, really. So it
makes me wonder if maybe I was told that story before.
Yeah, really.
I mean,
that's interesting.
I think that might just be a common thing, but it also could just be like one of those stories that I was told and like, you know, it just kind of came out like.
I mean, maybe I could see that being a thing. I didn't think about that. I was too busy thinking about Oh, I hope it's like a Hereditary or Midsummer, and then the first story has Hereditary Light,
Yeah.
and the second story has the word Midsummer. What are the chances? What are the freaking chances?
Maybe they're both real. It was...
Maybe. But I took those stories and I found this ghostsofamerica.com.
Okay.
You can, I assume you can just look up counties and towns and or whatever. This is Coburn, Virginia ghost sightings. There's 5 pages, but I just wanted to read maybe these first 2 because you've been to Coburn, right?
I'm sure.
Been through Coburn at least. Listen to these 2 stories here. This first one was submitted by Danny.
Daniel O'Heaton's the name.
Okay, here we go. Let me tell you why Coburn, Virginia is the most haunted place in the world.
All right.
I live near a trailer park.
Mm-hmm.
And one night I was up, in parentheses, had to go to the bathroom. You just can't say that he was just up one night. He just had to go to the bathroom. I saw 3 ghostly figures in the trailer park, and they looked like they were pleading for something. When I looked up, I saw what they were pleading for.
Meth.
It was the scariest thing I've seen in my life. It looked like Satan, but I wasn't sure it looked exactly like him. I was standing there watching. Then they all looked at me and started to walk towards my house. I didn't have any lights on, so I didn't know how they saw me, but I was terrified. From that point on, I haven't gotten up to go to the bathroom during the night ever again. I don't know if anyone else has seen it, but it was scary. Beware. Submitted by Daniel. And the categories are vent, trailer_park, bathroom, Satan, and park.
Bathroom.
Trailer_park, bathroom, Satan, park. Oh my gosh. And the one underneath that. See, I can't tell if it's this from the same post or I don't know, but he says, "Let me start off by saying this is not a joke. Don't take it as one. Coburn is pure evil. No one should have to go through the torture of living in this place. It is one of the most haunted places till this day. What I have saw over the years I have lived here are inhuman." There have been several stories about a ghost that lives in the gym. One night I was working out when all of a sudden everything just disappeared and I was left in total darkness. I felt as if I was not alone. Then a dark figure showed up, and all he said was that he was not here to be my friend, but to hurt me. I thought, oh God, there have been several complaints about the gym being broken into, but nothing is taken. Why this is like this, I have no clue, but Satan lives in this town.
Okay.
What the heck? What the heck is going on in Coburn?
Are there more stories like that?
Continued on the next page. The categories for that one was submitted by Anonymous. The categories are torture, Satan, evil, Jim Man.
Jim Man.
Evil Jim Man. Oh, this one has like actual. Oh, these are happening in trailer parks. There's nothing wrong with living in a trailer park. A trailer's a home. They're nice trailers, but I don't know why people want to live in the trailer parks that Satan are also living in, apparently.
God.
Here's one he says, I lived in Roy Lawson Trailer Park in 4 of his places, and in all of them I heard doors opening when it was me only at home at the time when... I'm trying to read it as it's been written, and it's just... I lived in Roy Lawson Trailer Park in 4 of his places, and in all of them I heard doors opening when it was me only at home at the time when this happened. The room got hot where a person couldn't stand it at all, and I had crosses hanging up to warn bad spirits off. I walked into one of the rooms in each place and see the cross upside down right there. Told me it was a demon in those places, and the more I tried to get rid of it, the meaner it got, and I just decided to move and not steep foot back in those places. It's in Riverview in Coburn, Virginia. Now I live somewhere else because of that.
All right.
Submitted by Anonymous.
So, I think it's confirmed at this point. The devil lives in Coburn.
I think so. Is the Food City? I believe that the deli in the Food City in Coburn, Virginia is haunted. This person says.
Okay.
Over the course of a couple of weeks, we have seen a shadow full-figure man walk to the corner of the kitchen. The swinging doors have swung by themselves. The time clock has operated itself, and it has been touching some of us. Now, I'm not sure this is the real thing, but it sounds like it. What used to be where the new Food City now stands? I should comment. I think it was like a
Indian burial?
ancient like ritual site or something.
A bunch of Satan worshippers used to do human sacrifice.
I think Satan used to live there. I didn't know about Satan and his Coburn living.
Well, apparently we have to go now. We've got to go to the Coburn Food City and
specifically the deli.
And ask the deli workers if they've been seeing Satan.
My gosh. The categories for that one were clock sounds man.
Clock sounds man.
Being raised in Coburn, Virginia, I can tell you firsthand of the eerie things that have happened over my years there. I left the area when I was 19, never to look back until recently. I've begun to visit home again. I've always been sensitive to the spirits who are locked to this world. My home is in a part of Coburn that in the country, Pine Camp. My home is in a part of Coburn that in the country, Pine Camp, that to be more specific, it has always been a tinderbox of paranormal activity.
Okay.
You understand what I'm saying? You understand?
I think I follow.
Come on, Will. My home is part of Coburn that in the country, Pine Camp, that to be more specific, it has always been a tinderbox of paranormal activity. Okay. At one time, an old cabin/house that had been built in the 1700s where my family built a new home. End of sentence. It was told that the cabin was used as a hospital or morgue, whichever the case would have been at the time. Anyway, when someone passed or died, the attendants would store the dead bodies in the old cellar until someone could dig the graves and the men could be buried. All these men were supposed to soldiers from the Civil War. The old cabin was dismantled in 1979 and donated to the Historical Museum, where it is rebuilt in Tennessee and is still on display to this day. I know for a fact that my grandmother and I experienced more than just a few ghostly sightings. Orb will dance in the family graveyard, and certain times strange lights, almost like lightning, will dance with through the land and through the house. We have captured this on film, and it has been reviewed by many paranormal experts. But something that I will always remember is the feeling of dread I have when I enter my dad's house. It is a heavy, evil feeling, but one night in September of 2010, I returned home from a family outing. My kids was spending the night with their cousins. I went to my room and felt the presence, presents, of something that was not human or spirits. It was pure evil. This presence, presents again, was strong. I settled my nerves, recited the 23 Psalms and the Lord's Prayer. I asked the presence to leave and not come back, as it was not welcome there. The feeling of dread left, and I went to bed. About 1 a.m. in the morning, I was awakened by a loud growling sound beside my bed. I was still alone in the house. Again, I recited the Lord's Prayer and prayed that my dad would return home. About 15 minutes later, I heard my dad pull into the long driveway and park his car. At this point, the growling slowly faded into the night. But before it was completely gone, it let me know it was not gone far away.
What?
But before it was completely gone, it let me know it was not gone far away.
So,
goodness gracious.
Okay, well, there's one more page. We might as well. Oh, never mind. Oh, no, yeah.
I was sitting in my best friend's room, then all of a sudden I look at the window and something looks back at me and not my reflection. It's an old man with really old shirt and pants on. I hollered for Autumn, but she didn't get up here in time. When she got here, the only thing we saw was her dog.
That looks like, or that sounds like, those like really weird cartoons.
Those like new meme formats where it's like, I was walking the dog out on the street the other day, and people just like read it in a country accent.
Yeah.
I hollered for Autumn, but she didn't get up here in time. I think this is the last one. These last two are pretty short. There have been many sightings of a young lady standing in the window of the old bus stop restaurant. She has been said to be wearing an old wedding dress and looks to be longing for a lover who had left her. This ghost is better not approached.
Lillian apparently knows exactly what the ghost wants.
Yeah, like she looks like she's definitely longing for a lover, but don't approach her.
Definitely not projecting any of my internal feelings on this ghost.
Looks to be longing for a lover. Well, there's you some Cobra and Ghost stories.
Well, I can confirm that these were probably definitely written by people from Cobra.
I mean, yeah, I would have to think so. It makes me wonder if this website has any Lee County. I don't think I see any. Portsmouth Pound. Pound is pretty close by to us. I can actually go down, find the L's. There's Leesburg. But I don't see Lee County. I wonder if there's a Pennington. Palmyra, Pennington Gap, 2 sightings.
Oh.
Not Penn Laird. Pennington Gap. Categories: farm, hospital, school, man. Categories: field, man.
Field man.
When I was in high school, some friends and I were riding around all the roads up behind the old Pennington Hospital. We saw this one old 2-story farmhouse with a front porch the length of the house. We were talking about how creepy it looked, and all of a sudden, this old woman wearing what looked like 1800s-style clothes just appeared on the porch. We freaked and yelled, "Where did she come from?" And we got out of there fast. Frank says, "This house you're talking about isn't close to where the duck pond is now."
Duck pond?
There's a reason why I ask. Thank you.
God.
Dude, that scares me to go up to the duck pond. There's a place down in Pennington called the Duck Pond. I'll let you put 2 and 2 together. It's just a pond that a bunch of ducks are at. People will go up there and like take prom pictures and feed the ducks and stuff.
Yeah.
But I didn't know there were ghostly colonial women up there. And this other one says, "Went out back to take out some trash. A man was in a field waving at me to come over, so I went walking over to him. Got to within 3 feet of him, look up, man had vanished. Submitted by Daniel."
Man, I wonder if it's the same Daniel.
I don't know, it might be. Categories: field, man,
trailer, devil,
Satan.
Went out back to take out some trash. Man was waiting at me to come over. When I looked up, it was Satan. And
Rose Hill has 1 sighting and 1 photo.
Oh?
Ghost photos from Rose Hill. Is this the photo?
What a photo. Actually kind of terrifying.
I don't.
Is it if you look,
Is it a ghost animal?
I just see like the legs there, you see? They might be legs.
Ghost picture from Rose Hill, Virginia, submitted by
look
Tammy.
At the bottom right. That's the fakest thing I've ever seen. Looks like an emoji.
that like white speck?
Yeah, zoom in. It looks like a girl's face, but like an emoji.
Oh my God.
I don't know.
Come on, Rose Hill. I lived in Rose Hill once. I had a tornado touch down by our house. I had to go in the basement. I remember crying because I thought I was going to lose all of my toys.
Not the toys.
Well, this person makes Rose Hill sound like a freaking zombie sanctuary or something. Rose Hill, Virginia appears like any other zone in the States, but this is a municipality where the living dead stride the residential streets during the dark hours. The undead are all over this settlement, as the local residents will tell you. Some local residents assert that there are no ghosts, but seeing is believing, and if you spend a night here in Rose Hill, you may perhaps catch a glimpse of a ghost. Don't say it's teeming with the undead walking the streets. First and foremost, like, no. I'm trying to see if there's any closer vicinity places that might have...
Oh, Jonesville has 2 sightings.
Read the Jonesville ones.
I got ghosts in my house. I hear it every night in my room, also downstairs in the bathroom. I have no clue what it is, but I would really like for you guys to help me try and find out who it is or what it is. Submitted by Alexis.
There's ghosts in my house. I still can't figure out what to do with them.
Here's another one by Daniel.
Daniel needs to stop with his ghost sightings or something. He's going crazy over here.
My daughter was out back, took a picture in a field. Picture looked like it had a man sitting in it, but when she looked up, no one was there.
Oh, God. That's the scariest thing I've ever heard.
Oh, Ben-Hur?
Wise has 10 pages worth of stuff.
Oh, God. Oh, okay. I've got in Ben-Hur. When I was a young boy, me and my family saw a strange white cloud above a light pole next to our house one night. Till this day, I have no idea if it was a ghost or some kind of what.
Some kind of what?
And now I'm 29, and I've never seen anything like it since. Ricky.
Oh, Ricky.
St. Charles.
Oh, gosh.
There's 3 pages there. You want to go first? You want me to go?
Yeah, let me read this one here. Just because, this one's in Wise. It says, I've been working with a construction company remodeling the Inn, aka the Colonial Inn, in Wise, Virginia. The building was built in the very early 1900s. I've seen many unusual things and eventually come across a lot of creepy stories about the place. I don't know which stories are true, but some make sense with the things I'm seeing. I would love to talk to someone who worked there in the past. I've seen shadows of people on the walls walking by some very little parentheses. I've been told a small boy died there between age 2 and 4. There's definitely someone still living on the second floor to the right and at the end of the hall. I've seen the small shadows there, and a heaviness comes over me and takes my breath away every time I walk down that hall. This is where room 15 is, the room the room the little boy was supposedly died in. Everyone I've come in contact with that has been on this floor says the same thing. I can't believe I can't find anything on the web about this place. This isn't a story. This is just him begging for information. What's the St. Charles one say?
There are 3. They're all...
I was up on top of Webb Hill the other day and saw the whirling Wimpus come out right there out of the bushes. I thought, oh, God, there it is. Every time we talk about it. Every time we talk about the Wimpus, something happens. A light goes out or something.
It's going to get us. So this guy I think he just needed a place to vent, and ghostfromamerica.com seemed to be his place.
Susan, please come back to me, I swear.
I've lived in St. Charles, Virginia my whole life. I'm 44 years old, and I've never seen any of these things that people speak of. The ghost stories. Lol. It's nonsense. Ghosts are nothing more than demons from hell. They are the devils. For once we die, our breath returns back to God. and to believe otherwise removes you from the truth of the Word of God, and there's only one true ghost, and that is the Holy Ghost. We never see him, and he is the Spirit of Jesus Christ. Ghosts are demons. Brian.
So I was about to say submitted by the preacher from the FingerBone. I guess his name was Brian. There is no such thing as ghosts. They are just demons from hell. I don't know. I don't think a demon from hell would just
hang out,
casually knock a glass off of a table. Just that's a kind of a low level demon, don't you think?
Yeah.
You get to possess people and do all sorts of mayhem. Tommy, you get to knock stuff out of cabinets at restaurants and schools or whatever.
Tommy, you get to be a cat.
Yeah. Tommy the cat.
Was there when I was 14 years old. Now I'm 62. The place was like a ghost town then. My dad
still is.
My dad took us to Bonnie Blue Mine. The houses were all lined up on both sides of the road, and we all felt like someone was watching the mine opened. I think in the 1900, the commissary was still there. Would not going back there today. Submitted by Thomas.
Okay, Thomas.
Then
good job.
This last one here. I've lived in St. Charles my whole life, and I know everyone here, and I've heard all the stories and folk tales. This whole town is full of souls that are at unrest. There's a place called Bonnie Blue that has numerous haunted sites in just about a mile strip. Sounds like we need to go to Bonnie Blue.
Dude, I guess we do.
But also, I think that this one doesn't even have anonymous. It just exists. I think he and the guy from the top, I think they should meet up and have a civil debate about whether or not there are souls at unrest or just demons.
Ghosts are just demons from hell.
Oh, here we got Kyoki.
Ever heard of the old orphanage? Supposedly haunted by the spirits of the children who once lived there. There have been reports of slamming doors, the laughter of children, and the images of people staring at you through the windows. This place is truly haunted, and I believe these ghosts are somewhat angered.
Somewhat.
The building is now closed, and no one is allowed inside. Submitted by Lauren.
I've seen many a ghost on Mohawk Road, and I was so scared of them. Even my mom saw the same one I did, so she knows how I feel. Submitted by Caitlin.
Oh my gosh. I went to JJ Kelly. Spent tons of hours there. No hauntings. The orphanage is truth. I've been inside there. It's creepy. And Central is an entirely different facility. I've never even been there. But it's not Kelly.
It's not.
The orphanage is truth.
The orphanage is truth. Bow your head.
Submitted by Buzz. Category? Orphanage.
I already read Duffield. Okay.
I'm glad we can give viewers and listeners the two sides of the stories, like the well-written, publishable in a book stories, and the I was out by the fishing dock, not to be confused with the loading dock, and I saw what appeared to be a light appear from
somewhere
the tree line.
And then it came up to me, and I walked away.
And I just went back into my house. I'll never wake up to use the bathroom again.
You know?
Satan lives in Coburn. Good night.
As do I.
I lived in Coburn for a year. I'll go on record and say I never saw Satan.
Are you sure?
But maybe I just lived on the wrong side of the tracks. I don't know. There is the giant like home goods, like furniture, or like it's like a local Lowe's kind of thing. It's got that giant statue of the big like lumberjack guy.
I have no idea.
And he usually holds an axe, but every year for different holidays they put new stuff in his hands.
Yeah.
So like I think they've put a giant Easter basket in there before. For whatever reason, at one point they just had a freaking stormtrooper in his hands, and I don't know if it was some sort of like The Force Awakens is coming to Cinema City 9. We should put a stormtrooper in our giant statue's hands. It reminds me of the lumberjack statue from It Chapter 2.
I haven't seen any It. I've watched the original It, but it was like whenever I was five.
Listen, the new ones I think are really great. I watched the first one on Amazon, and then the second one came out, and I saw it in theaters. And I can't remember what year it came out, 2019, something like that. But it was one of my favorite movies of that year. Mm-hmm. And I'm usually not into like super like horror movies a lot. I don't watch a lot of them, but I really liked It Chapter 2. It was good. Well, what'd you think about this? This was a more lighthearted episode, I feel, but
yeah,
it's hard to read some of those seriously, just the way they're written.
Yeah,
but I feel like a lot of like paranormal stories that revolve around this area are all very similar.
Sorry, can I read one more?
Absolutely.
This is from Duffield. In the Rock Cove area, there are a place called Stanley Town where they had an old coal mine. One night, a man named Jim Murdy was driving a coal truck on the old road. He was going around a curve and wrecked Recked, and died. And for years now, on the same road in the middle of the night, you can see the old truck with Jim Murdy wrecking and him dying over and over. Submitted by Bill. Sorry.
You're telling me that Bill here says that you can go on this road and just watch this guy die over and over again?
Apparently.
That's a horrible way to be a ghost. And how does that, like, how do you determine, like, you can be a ghost that, like, kind of, like, chills and, like, can go anywhere and does whatever, or you get to be the ghost that
relives your
death every single day over and over and over again.
Sorry, I just saw Recked, and I was like, this is a good one.
Presence. There was a presence there. Presents.
Man, road, trucks.
Oh my gosh. I might sit through this website and just read through a bunch of...
Oh yeah. But so yeah, what's your I guess what's your theory on FingerBone /
the convert?
Yeah.
I think that my theory on the convert is that's probably more so just like a tell to get people to go to church or repent or whatever. And I mean, not to say that I don't think that what happened in the convert could not happen.
Yeah.
But of the stories so far we've read out of this book, that one was the utmost, like, most preachy one. Even the one about the preacher wasn't even that preachy. It was he helped solve a murder. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think something like the first one could happen, but I think it was just like a cautionary tale.
Yeah.
The FingerBone, on the other hand, it's a pretty elaborate story, which, I mean, I guess it could just be an elaborate story that someone made up back in the day, but I like the idea of... And when he was describing the ghost when it first appeared, like, it was scary.
Yeah.
Like, it didn't show up and was like, you must find my murderer. You know, like, it was like, this thing was like screaming, high-pitched screaming, or like low-pitched screaming. Like, it would terrify me, I feel like. And there's something about that I feel like if someone made that up, like, it that had to have been a conscious choice. So it either definitely was made up, or, which I guess that's the same with anything. It's either made up or not. But I mean, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I have more of a hard time believing the first one than the second one. But after reading through a bunch of these, I really do think that the area is more haunted than people probably imagine. But I mean, case in point, we're reading these in funny, like, hick voices, and I'm not trying to make fun of anyone. This is just how we are from this area. Some of us, you know, I mean, like, it's just how the area is seen, and I feel like that's probably why we can't take some of them as serious.
Yeah, and then but then you think if you've if some of these, even though they're written poorly or whatever, if they are true, you got to imagine how many stories that people just don't even know how to get to the website or like how to use a computer.
Exactly. Stories that people only like pass down generation. They're not written down anywhere. No one can. That would be a cool project to try to get a bunch of like word of mouth stories put together in a book or something.
Cool.
But I definitely, this area is pretty rich in paranormal lore. We should try to go to some of these places and see if we can't get anything on film or something. I think that would be a lot of fun. Well, maybe we'll retire Spooky Tales of Virginia for a bit. We might revisit it in the future.
Yeah, come back to the sacred text, but not tomorrow. Next episode
will be a fun one.
Hopefully we can get the research together. It's a pretty popular topic, so I'm sure we will. Skinwalkers. The crap that I always see on my TikTok at like 2 or 3 a.m. if I'm awake. Yeah. All these creepy skinwalker videos. But I mean that'll be an interesting topic to dive into. I'm curious to see where we stand on it before the episode and how we stand on it after the episode. Very interested.
Well, continue to listen to us if you're enjoying everything so far. Everyone I know personally has given me some decent feedback. People seem to like what we're putting out, so that's great.
Yeah. That's kind of similar feedback, just getting some good stuff. I think, if you are listening and you've gotten this far, find someone, tell them to listen if you enjoy it.
Yeah, I think it's a show for everybody. I don't think we appeal to a certain type of demographic. I wouldn't think, but I don't know. I think everyone could find some enjoyment in it. Yeah, we enjoy making them for everybody, so it all kind of comes full circle anyway. Yeah, but yeah, give us all the likes and downloads or subscriptions. Yeah, good stuff. Whatever all the rigmarole is these days. That always helps us out. And then hopefully we'll be able to continue to do some maybe bigger episodes or more like expansive episodes, some new content, whatever it may be, whatever people seem to like.
Yeah. And I mean, we've got some other stuff coming soon. I'll just say that much.
Yeah. Don't want to give too much away or set ourselves up too much. Yeah. But there are some things in the works, and we'll be on the way at some point that I'm excited for. Yeah. And I hope everyone else will be too.
Yeah. Until next time, please
sleep tight.
Keep your finger bones where they should be.
I cannot absolve you from the finger bone. Only you can do that yourself. Finger.